Hi, have you ever walked into someone's home and instantly noticed something different? Not because they were expecting guests, not because they spent hours cleaning, but because everything just felt in place, calm, clear, almost effortless. And you catch yourself wondering, what is going on here? How do they maintain this every single day? Are they just more disciplined? Do they have more time? Or is there something deeper happening beneath the surface? Here is the truth. People who keep their home consistently clean are not just organized. They are operating from a different mental system, not in a mystical way, in a very real psychological and neurological way. The person who tidies up every day is not thinking the same way as someone who waits until things spiral out of control. Their relationship with their environment is fundamentally different. And once you understand that, everything changes. Because a clean home is never just about a clean home. It reflects how your mind is structured. It reflects your sense of control. It reflects your identity. And if you have ever felt strangely drained in a messy space or unexpectedly calm in a clean one, then you have already experienced this without realizing it. Let us start with something simple but powerful. Your brain does not clearly separate your inner world from your outer world. The space around you is constantly feeding signals into your nervous system. There is a concept in psychology called cognitive load. It refers to how much mental effort your brain is using at any given moment. Now, here is where it gets interesting. Clutter quietly competes for your attention even when you are not consciously focusing on it. A pile of laundry, dishes left in the sink, papers scattered across a table, clothes draped over a chair. Your brain registers all of it. And it labels it as something unfinished. And unfinished things are mentally expensive. They sit in the background of your awareness, pulling on your attention, draining your focus. Research has shown that clutter actually interferes with your ability to think clearly. It overloads your visual processing system and makes it harder for your brain to filter information. So when your environment is messy, it is not just annoying, it is actively reducing your ability to focus. It is increasing mental fatigue. It is slowing you down in ways you may not even notice. Have you ever tried to concentrate in a messy room and felt your mind slip away? That is not a coincidence. Now flip that. When your space is clean and ordered, your brain relaxes. There is less noise, less visual interference, less unfinished business pulling at your attention. And as a result, you think more clearly. You feel calmer. You move through your day with less friction. Your environment starts working with you instead of against you. But there is something even deeper happening here. People who clean their home every day are not doing it because they love cleaning. Let us be honest. Almost nobody wakes up excited to scrub a floor or wipe down surfaces. That is not what is driving this behavior. What they have discovered, consciously or not, is that maintaining their environment is one of the simplest ways to create a sense of control in their life. Because if you look closely, most of life is unpredictable. You cannot control what other people do. You cannot control unexpected events. You cannot control outcomes in many areas. And that uncertainty creates a quiet layer of stress in the background, a kind of tension that never fully disappears. But your immediate environment is different. Your room, your kitchen, your desk, those are within your control. And every time you clean something, every time you restore order, you send a signal to your nervous system. You are telling yourself that things are manageable, that you can take action, that you are not overwhelmed, that you are in charge. That is why cleaning often brings a strange sense of relief. It is not just about the result. It is about what that action represents psychologically. In psychology, this connects to something called the locus of control. People who believe their actions influence their outcomes tend to feel less anxious and more capable. And one of the easiest ways to reinforce that belief is through your environment. Small actions, making your bed, clearing your desk, washing dishes right after eating. These are not just chores, they are signals. Repeated signals that shape how you see yourself. Which brings us to something even more important. Identity. People who keep their home clean are not constantly forcing themselves to do it. They are not relying on discipline every single day. At some point, they became the type of person who keeps things in order. And once that identity forms, the behavior becomes automatic. You no longer argue with yourself about whether to clean. You simply do it, because that is who you are. And behavioral psychology is very clear about this. We act in alignment with our identity. If you believe you are messy, you will unconsciously allow things to pile up. You will justify it. You will say that is just how you are. But identity is not fixed. It is built through repeated action. Every small behavior becomes evidence. Each time you clean something immediately instead of delaying it, you are reinforcing a different version of yourself. Someone who follows through. Someone who maintains their space. Someone who respects their environment. And over time, your brain updates its image of who you are. Eventually, it stops feeling like effort. It becomes natural. That is the shift you are looking for. Not forcing yourself forever, but doing it long enough that it becomes part of you. And timing matters more than most people realize, especially in the morning. Right after you wake up, your brain is in a unique state, more receptive, more flexible, more open to forming patterns. So when the first action of your day is something simple like making your bed or clearing a surface, you are doing more than cleaning. You are setting a tone. You are creating momentum. You are showing your brain that the day has started with order instead of chaos. There is also a small reward built into this. When you complete a task and see a visible result, your brain releases a bit of dopamine. It feels good, even if the task is small. And that feeling encourages you to continue. One small action leads to another, and by the end of the day, that initial momentum has multiplied. That is how simple habits scale into something much bigger than they appear at first. But let us be honest for a moment. Some of you might be thinking that you are just naturally messy, that this is how you have always been, that your environment has always looked a certain way. And I understand that. But here is something important to consider. Your environment is not neutral. It reflects what is happening internally. When life feels overwhelming, the space around you often reflects that. When someone is stressed or emotionally drained, maintaining their environment becomes harder. Things start to slip, and the external mess begins to mirror the internal state. But it also works in reverse. Your environment can influence how you feel. Living in clutter increases stress levels over time. It keeps your nervous system slightly activated, even when nothing dramatic is happening. That constant low-level tension adds up. So if you come home and feel tired or restless without knowing why, look around. The environment itself may be contributing to that feeling. Now here is a misconception that needs to be removed. People who keep their home clean are not more disciplined than you. It only looks that way from the outside. What you are really seeing is a system, a pattern that has become automatic. Just like brushing your teeth, you do not debate whether to do it. You simply do it. That is the level you want to reach. Because discipline can run out, but habits sustain themselves. Research suggests that with enough repetition, behaviors become automatic. What starts as effort eventually becomes routine. And once that happens, it no longer drains you. It becomes part of your normal flow. There is also a sensory side to this that people rarely talk about. A clean space feels different, visually, physically, emotionally. There is less noise, more openness, more clarity. Your nervous system interprets that as safety, as stability, as something being handled. And for people who are more sensitive to their surroundings, this effect becomes even stronger. Walking into a messy room can instantly increase tension. Walking into a clean one can create relief. That is not imagination. That is your brain responding to environmental input. And this is why environments designed for calm, like spas or quiet spaces, are always clean and ordered. Because that structure directly supports how your brain regulates stress. There is another layer here that is even more interesting. Cleaning itself can change how you feel emotionally. When you are stressed or restless, doing something physical with a clear outcome can help regulate that energy. You move, you organize, you complete something. And in the process, your mind begins to settle. The external action helps shift your internal state. That is why people often clean when they feel overwhelmed. Not because they want a perfect space, but because the act itself helps them regain balance. And this becomes especially powerful at the end of the day. When you take a few minutes to reset your space before bed, you are not just preparing for tomorrow. You are closing the day. You are creating a boundary, a signal that things are finished, that it is time to rest. And your brain responds to that signal more than you might expect. So how do you actually begin? The key is not to do more. It is to start smaller. Most people wait until things become overwhelming, and then the task feels too big to even begin. Instead, catch it early. Clean small things immediately. Do not let them grow into something larger, because maintaining is always easier than fixing. The second step is to attach the behavior to something you already do. Use existing routines as anchors. While coffee is brewing, wipe the counter. After brushing your teeth, clean the sink. You are not creating something new. You are building onto what already exists. And the third step is to change how you see it. If cleaning feels like punishment, your brain will resist it. So make it something you enjoy. Add music. Create a small ritual. Turn it into something you do for yourself, not something you are forced to do. Because at the end of the day, this is not about cleaning, it is about standards. Your home reflects what you believe you deserve. And most people never stop to think about that. Imagine coming home after a long day and stepping into a space that feels calm and ready for you. That feeling matters. It affects your mood, your energy, your sense of self. People who maintain a clean home are not obsessive. They have simply decided that their environment matters, that it influences how they think and feel. That it is worth taking care of. So here is something simple you can try. For the next 7 days, choose one space, just one, and keep it consistently clean. Do not expand. Do not overcomplicate it. And then pay attention. Notice how it feels to walk into that space. Notice how it affects your energy, your focus, your mood, because this is not really about a clean room. It is about becoming someone who shows up for themselves, someone who takes responsibility for their space, and in doing so, creates a little more clarity and control in their life. I would be curious to know your experience. Do you feel different in a clean space compared to a messy one? And what do you notice when you start maintaining it consistently?